Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 146 of Speaking from the Heart. Today's guest is Leah Parker, and Leah is a licensed therapist, veteran, and recovering perfectionist who has a passion for supporting trauma survivors, reconnecting to their body, heart, and worth. This is to help them develop deep connections and healthy relationships once again. And I love that our relationship with this episode starts from not only the fact that she has been a United States veteran, but she has been going through some of the biggest challenges of her life, going from not only re-enlisting in the armed forces, which we talk about, but also what it means to set goals, help others, while at the same time being a leader. You have to figure that this hard work, the things that you have to do, allow us to understand that we need to gain a sense of independence, feeling that we belong, not feeling like we have all these bad things always happening to us, and of course, looking beyond what's on the surface, even what's on a paper for that matter, because let's face it, when you do talk to someone and you do deal with them on a daily basis, you start to understand them a little bit better. So how do you overcome some of the societal tensions, the cultural norms, even the things that we have to push ourselves through in order to have a greater connection with everyone? I think that you'll find that Leah's story today touches on not just all these things, but it also connects with why we need to have a proven identity, an understanding of what we are and aligning with that identity, no matter what anybody challenges us to feel, to even have as questionable motives or opportunities in our life. Because if you think about it, we are one unique person. And I think that you'll find that Leah's unique story fits all that and so much more. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Leah Parker. Leah, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for providing the space.
Absolutely. I'm appreciative of you providing a bigger space because you are one of my veterans on the show. And I just want to acknowledge right away for the fact that you served in the Marine Corps. So thank you very much on the bottom of my heart for the service that you provided to our country.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great segue to start off with our conversation because I already let the audience know, Leah, a little bit about you and your background. First off, what got you actually interested in serving in the military? And then after you did your military stint, what made you decide to enter the space that you're in right now?
That's going to make for an interesting story. I think like a lot of our military folks, they say there's like two type of people. There's the type of people who are running away from something that join the military. And then there's those that are patriotic. And there's not a lot of, sorry to burst your bubble. But I came from a pretty tumultuous kind of childhood. I mean, there was a lot of pleasance, but there was a lot of valleys too. There was some addiction, domestic violence stuff. We lived in a not great part of the city for a lot of the time. So there was like gang violence and stuff as well. And there was this sense of, this is not it for me. I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. And I was looking for any avenue to do that. And recruiters, they love to visit high schools. And it's almost like they can sense you from a mile away. And I was approached by a Marine recruiter. I chose the Marine Corps because he looked the best in uniform, to be honest. He looked sharp. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to be like that person, right? He's squared away. He's sharp. He's well-spoken. He was emulating just kind of that aura, that confidence that I was wanting to step into. And then there was another side of it that I was like, if I'm going to be in the military, this is my little cocky little 17-year-old self, right? I want to do the hard one. Like, why am I going to sugarcoat it or scapegoat around it? Let me go ahead and do the one that people say that you can't do or whatever. But I joined the Marine Corps to pretty much escape family and just gain a sense of independence. And I didn't know it at the time, but another thing that really attracted me to the Marine Corps that in hindsight I can see is with him being so squared away, what that was telling me is there's a lot of structure here. And I came from an environment with no structure, and I knew I needed that. Not on a cognitive level, but on that unconscious level. I knew I needed boundaries. I knew I needed structure in my life. So I did about 10 years in the Marine Corps, just shy of 10. And through that, there was lots of up and downs in that experience. There's a lot of really good things that I took away from it. There's some not so great things that I took away, and that's okay. But the part of the Marine Corps that I liked was the leadership. I liked being a leader. I liked sitting down with my Marines. I liked getting to know them. I liked helping them create goals for themselves. I liked watching them surpass me. I was not that disgruntled person. If I had a younger Marine get promoted above me, I was sitting and I was like, yes, you are doing something, right? And so I was like, oh, there is something here. I didn't like the FF games that the Marine Corps played. I didn't like that side of it, but there was something to that piece of it. I didn't know what that would look like when I got out. I got out, and I think like probably most veterans or just anybody that makes a big transition, a big career transition, but maybe military or law enforcement or things like that a little bit more, is there is this identity crisis that we go through.
Mm.
And I got out and I spiraled because I had to sit with the question, well, if I'm not a Marine, who am I? What
Wow.
am I? And that was hard, right? When you go from 17 to your 20s, identifying as this thing above all else, when that's ripped away from you, it's hard to grapple with, it's hard to reckon with. So I turned to some self numbing activities. There was a period of depression in there. And I started to finally see a counselor for the first time. And then that kind of sparked this trajectory of where I am now. They were really helpful. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. And I was like, this is what I want to be for other people. I want to be a light. This is that mentorship that I gravitated to so much. This is the part of the experience that I enjoyed. And then I started down that path.
You mentioned about identity crisis. And for many veterans that I have talked to on the show, I think of David Specht, who's one of my guests that I've had many, many episodes ago, where he kind of shared how that shaped him into getting into the journalism field and helping him become a better leader because of helping his family being able to achieve some of those greatness items. You're sharing a little bit of an opposite story of that. And I noticed that a lot of the things that you have mentioned, even on your website about yourself, is the concept of anger. Did that have anything to do with why it was such an adjustment period for you after the military? I've had some family members that have served in the military myself. I have never served in the military, but I know of some others that have had that sort of struggle readjusting back to civilian life. And I'm wondering if that has any contribution to what you've been through. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about that too.
Mm, That's a good point that you picked that out. I was angry. I felt betrayed in a lot of ways. You know, the military, they hook you in with this sense of family. We're your brothers, we're your sisters, we have your back. There's this camaraderie. We got you. You never leave a Marine behind. We got you. But when you're in there, that's for sure not the case. You find that these people that you look to, that you respect, they're the ones that hurt you. They turn their back on you. And it was a really painful process because a lot of people may not be aware, and I'll share it here. Part of it was I wanted to get out, but I did submit for a reenlistment thinking, you know what? If they say yes, what's the worst that can happen? I retire in 10 years. And they said no. And that stung. That
Wow.
that really hurt. And so there was a lot of anger there of this woe is me kind of self-pity place or this other criticism place of I gave you 10 years of my life. I gave you the best years of my life. You got all my 20s. And this is that thanks that I get. They didn't even give me the full severance pay. So that was just like icing on the cake of my F y'all. And so a lot of it was stripping away the parts of my identity that were formed, encapsulated to be that essence of a Marine that really never fit me. And I think I needed some of that anger to really let go of a lot of those pieces, if that makes sense.
It does. And I can relate to you. I didn't really share this with you, but my listeners know that I have been trained in Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a nonprofit that works on communication leadership development. And I was given the opportunity to lead several hundred clubs at one time because of working through the process. I couldn't do it because that was the time, Leah, that I actually tried to hurt myself. And I wasn't really in a healthy state to be helping other
Yeah.
people if I needed the help the most. So a few years later, I tried to go through that process and I felt like I was shunned. And now I know some people listening to this know exactly what I'm talking about. And they're probably already raging in anger. Like, why would you bring that up, Josh? Because that left a big impression in my life when I was going back and trying again and I was rejected too. So I can relate to that feeling because you feel like you've been separated out even after you tried to put in the hard work. But I learned a valuable lesson even myself, and I feel like you are trying to do the same in that maybe that had a place in time, but those signs are oftentimes the ability for us to move in a different direction and serve in the greater capacities that we are able to do, which I will contribute that decision of failure in my life that ultimately led to starting my own coaching business, Your Speaking Voice, hence the reason being able to do this podcast. So I think that you started on the counseling as a result of not only trying to do this, but also build some of these other facets of your life out. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, 100%. It was a blessing in disguise by all the means. I wouldn't have been able to heal in the Marine Corps. I know that. There was too much of it requires you to be a little broken.
Mm.
And I hate to say that, but people who've been there will understand what I mean by that. And so having enough separation from it allowed me to come into my authentic self and heal parts of me that would have never had the space to heal in that environment. So I 100% would not be the person I am today, the mother I am today, the wife I am today, the sister I am today, the daughter I am today, the counselor, the coach, if I hadn't had that quote unquote rejection.
Were you rejected though in the military itself? Because you were saying a little bit earlier about not just the reenlistment and the rejection of that, but it sounded to me like you almost didn't fit in because the culture that you were told it was going to be was not the culture than it was in reality sense. So for me, before you even answer that, hearing what you're saying and you also helping others before you even got into the counseling world, quote unquote, you were a counselor. Do you think that might have helped you with having that sort of atmosphere build your perseverance to want to help others?
In a sense, I mean, I was a mentor. One of the things that I do keep with me that the military taught me was how to be a good leader and how to be a good mentor. They teach you a lot of principles and values that are necessary. And so all of that followed me, yes. But there was I'll just say it. There's no other way to say it than to just call it out. But to be a woman in the Marine Corps is a very hard thing to do. We are
Wow.
such a small subgroup of people. We are in a man's world. It's still very much a man's world. There's still a lot of, at least when I was in, now that's been about 10 years now, the older leadership, you could tell the ones that really still didn't think we should be there. And even to the other Marines, you were either seen as a potential sexual object or you were cold and there wasn't a lot of room just to be. They were quick to label us. They have lots of nasty names for female Marines that objectify us and put us out there to be something that we're not. And even if you don't fit in their particular idea of what women are, that doesn't keep them from spreading rumors. It doesn't keep them from talking about you. So it doesn't keep them from harassing you. It doesn't stop any of that. And so I thought I was naive. I grew up with mostly sisters. I didn't have a lot of brothers, and I thought I was getting brothers, but I got a lot of predators. And not all. I met some really good guys along the way that I would still consider them friends, and I appreciate the connections we made and the relationships we had during my time in the Marine Corps. But a lot of it wasn't that.
You know, first off, that's the most open that I've ever heard anybody explain the situation being a female in a male dominated military world. And I have to be very careful myself because for my listeners, they know I'm a male. I mean, you can tell I'm a male too, and you're a female. And I got to be very careful walking this line myself because I believe in everybody having the equal opportunity to be able to become the best versions of themselves. I really believe in that. So much so that I've built my business around the fact that coaching others to find that voice in this ever changing world is so important. You are the epiphany of wanting to change people in this ever changing world because you're living the mission that I really setting out to do, Leah, because you saying what these things are so important. And for you to not feel like you were acknowledged in that, that makes me feel sad, to be honest with you, just listening to this because here I am talking to somebody that is very intelligent, eloquent, has much education. I mean, I'm looking at your website and I'm just wowed. You could probably look behind me because for my listeners, we were able to see each other, although you're only hearing the audio. But you see that I have many degrees behind even me, for that matter, that I've been able to achieve throughout my lifetime. But I never really stop to think sometimes about what it might mean to struggle through some of the things that women have to go through. And I am not saying that I am sorry because that's what's defined you, and I'm not the one that did it either. It's all
Right,
these other
exactly.
people. But at the same time, I feel that you are much stronger of a person than I am. And for that reason, I think it's so important to acknowledge this one question that I have for you that I think is really important. Do you think that if it wasn't for those experiences, especially with going through school and going through the military, do you have any regrets? Do you have any sort of feeling of, I should have never had to go through this in the first place? Because to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm leading you in this question, and I might be, but I feel like you have such
Well,
a
yeah.
strong skill set that goes beyond that. You're able to talk to people that you can relate to so much better than I ever could.
Yeah. So early in my healing journey, I very much was in that place. Why me? Why did bad things seem to happen to me? When am I going to learn the lesson? Whoever you are out there, I think I've learned the lesson. We don't need to circle back around. But it's one thing that I think we've probably heard this so many times before, but your trauma can be your triumph. And it's like you said, it has given me a level of depth that I wouldn't have had I not went through those things and was resilient and had to learn how to process and come back to myself. And so I don't regret what happened. I do have a few regrets about some things in life, but it's more about how I related to things versus the things that happened to me, if that makes sense. I don't think that I would take those things away, but if I could go back to my younger self and mentor her a little bit better, the way I was relating to those things, I would have loved to hold her hand and help her through those in a much quicker quicker way. That makes sense.
It does. And for us to be able to do that means that we have to have that empowerment or that knowledge to be able to do just that. And sometimes it's not as easy as it might sound because we have all those past traumas, like you said. But I love what you said. Trauma can be our triumph. And you did triumph. I'm going to just go ahead and call it out for what it is. Okay. Because as you know, and we even talked about this before we started, I'm about calling it out for what it is all about because that's where I am at this point in my life. Whether people are apologetic about it or not, I don't care because I feel that if it's really something that you've done that's really good, I'm going to say it. Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, Columbia College. Master of Arts in Counseling, St. Edward's University. You have all these different certifications and trainings in not only postpartum, prenatal yoga, heart of trauma, emotional transformative therapy. You've done so many different things to build yourself this opportunity that is not only something that I'm like shocked at because of what you've been through. Because easily people can make the decision of, no, I'm not going to continue with this. I'm just going to sit
Mhm.
in my sorrow. My question for you is, you've done all these things. Why give back? Why try? Because you obviously do find that energy inside of yourself to try, Leah. Why you try to help others to try to find that as well?
When I was talking about going back to that younger version of myself and really sitting with her a little earlier and shaking her a little bit, like, you are worth so much more than you are offering to yourself. And on paper, here's the thing, I've always looked fantastic on paper. I am a recovering perfectionist. I have always had, well, not always, but I worked really hard to have the perfect body. I would have the perfect uniform. I would have the perfect CFT score. I would never have a perfect PFT because I could never run that fast, but that's okay. It was always a first class. On paper, I did all the things. I went above and beyond. I checked all the boxes because I was constantly trying to earn my worth, to earn my value. So some of what you're reading there, as impressive as it is an extension of that. Earning my confidence and my competence in this field and feeling like I have to have all these things to then have the space to be able to show up and talk like I am right now. Some of that is just I have a deep love for learning, and that will never end. And I like to be efficient. So,
Yeah, you
um,
definitely are efficient with what you've been answering these, I gotta tell you.
but the peace that I have now, the love that I can truly sit with myself in, and how that has changed, like transformed the relationships in my life is why I try. And I don't try in a way that I have someone in front of me and I'm efforting to get them somewhere because that's rude, that's invasive, and I don't do that. But I try in the sense that I hold the invitation and I will hold it for as long as they need me to.
Yeah.
That what you said to me, that I see you. And I don't only see who's in front of me, but I see the little 5-year-old in you. I see the little 8-year-old in you. I see the little 12-year-old in you. I see that 21-year-old in you. I see all those parts of you. I embrace all of them.
I
Yeah.
had a guest on recently that talked about the different chairs that we sit on and how they all interplay into how we become an adult. And sometimes we're sitting, though, in the adolescent chair the most. And it's such a fascinating concept. Jenny Jansen, who was on the show,
Mhm.
actually talked about this quite a lot. And I think that what you're saying is not just about being seen, which I did say to you, and for my listeners, before we even
Mhm.
started, I did say to Leah, because she had some hesitations about doing this, I said, "I do see you. You don't have to be nervous about what you're sharing today, because I think what you share are sometimes the things that we don't share in the moment that counts the most, are the things that we really need to hear the most." But it isn't just about the chairs that we sit in. It's not just about what we have accomplished, which, yes, I'm also a recovering perfectionist myself. I feel like we're two peas in a pod here because I always tried to overachieve because I was always overweight and always didn't feel good about myself up until
Mhm.
about 4 years ago. And then something clicked that I can't do that anymore because it's not sustainable. But you're saying something that is truly important, and it's about that continuous learning process. It's not just about staying stagnant. It's not just about feeling that you have to always cater to what the intrinsic or extrinsic motivations are, which I had a recent client that we've talked about those concepts and why it's so important to be in balance with both the intrinsicness and the extrinsicness,
Mhm.
because you can have too much of feeding your self ego, but you can also have too much of other people trying to feed your ego and you're relying on that. And then when it goes downhill, you go downhill.
You spiral fast.
Yes.
Oh, does the spiral go deep?
Yes. It does go super
Yes.
deep. It goes super into
Mhm.
the weeds of why we are sometimes struggling to create that context in our lives that we are trying to find. But you are doing. Are you happy with where you're at now?
So much so. I mean, of course, I still have goals. For the first time, I can say that I am content in my romantic relationship. I could never say that before. I could never invite that in. I am content in the professional that I am. I have a desire to make a greater impact, which is part of this podcast tour that I'm doing. But I am extremely happy with where I am. And it's because I slowed down for myself and I built relationships with my own little people inside that I can hold the space for others to do the same. And it's really for me about inviting people to just form connections with themselves, to deepen that connection with themselves so they have the space to open up their heart to others. That's my why, you know?
Yeah, you have to be able to. And you need to be able to always ask that question of why. Leah, we're almost towards the end of our time, and it's been such
Mhm.
a heartfelt conversation. I feel this sense of kindredness inside of me right now, of peace, being able to hear your answers. And I don't know why, because I feel that you've been through so much, but yeah, you're a very strong woman for being able to share your convictions of what you have been through and why something needs to change. And I'm going to ask you a question that you ask your clients because you have this on your website, and I found this really fascinating. Yeah, you probably know what I'm going to ask you because it's straight out there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, this is the question to ask you. So you have on your website for my listeners, she says, what is your first question for a client and why? And you wrote in quotes, if our time together provided you with everything you need to live your best life, how would you know our work was done? Well, my question to rephrase that for you is, how will you know that your work is done, Leah? Or will it be ever done?
I don't think it'll ever be done because the world will never be, well, I don't want to say never, but in my lifetime, I don't believe that we'll be able to treat each other with enough empathy and compassion that there won't be trauma to process. And so, as a trauma therapist, as a perinatal therapist, women will always have babies and that will always be a hard transition. Couples will always have struggles. They like my work will never be done. That doesn't mean that I'll never be able to close the book on my professional chapter. But being a mentor is who I am. And whether that is for clients in a professional setting or my own children or my grandchildren or my friends and family, I'll never stop being the person who sits down and really sits with you.
We don't have enough of that in this world. And sometimes we need to have that extra chair out for the nights that someone does show up and we need to be able to make a cup of coffee, make a cup of tea, whatever that is, and be able to just sit with them. And whether that's crying, whether that is just having someone to talk to, whether it's something else. I know that for me, in the darkest of times, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about this too, but
Yeah.
I often wanted somebody to do just the same, and instead, they would either call the cops or they would call somebody instead, but I really wanted to hear from them more than anything else, even if I wasn't in a good mindset, and that's why it's always been my mission since I have become more self-aware of what I had done destructively to myself that I needed to be able to help others. You're doing such the same by pulling up that chair, and I encourage you to keep
Mhm.
pulling up that chair because you got not only the goods to bring because of all the things you did, even if it was from a time that you had that perfectionism inside of you, but you are doing something that in this world we need to be able to continue doing, which is having that extra chair out. So,
Yeah. Because
Leah,
that's all we really want, right? Be seen, but not to be seen for who they want us to be, but to be seen for who we are and to be accepted and to be held. And so, yeah, my chair, my door, my room, it will always be open.
thanks for being so open with all of us. And Leah, I want to give you the last few minutes. I'm
Mhm.
sure many people are sitting back now and thinking, wow, this lady's incredible. I want to be able to reach out to her. I'll probably have more questions. How can people reach out to you? If people are interested in having some counseling with you, maybe you can talk a little bit about Omni counseling and how they can schedule some of that time with you. Even if people want to reach out to you on your social media, I would love for you to share some of that. But I'm going to give you the last few minutes to do all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. If the way that I held space today or the way that I have come across resonated with you in any way and you would like to spend some time with me, just go to my website. It is www.omi, that's Oscar Mike India, counseling.com. And you can book a consultation with me through there. I also do workshops and I hold retreats and I do lots of other things. So if you even just want to be in my world to see what's coming up, you can jump on my newsletter. And if you are really resonating with my invitation to return back to your heart, you can go download my free workbook. It is a guide to return to the heart and nurturing your self compassion. And it really walks you through the phases where we're most likely to disconnect from our heartfulness. So you can kind of get an idea of what your core need wounding is, like who you need to go mentor inside. And it kind of guides you through what that looks like. And then it gives prompts to practice self compassion because it's a skill that we have to learn. And with perfectionism, there's always a very fierce critic that comes with that. And that took me a lot of time to soften her. And starting with self compassion is so important because we can't heal from a state of shame. We can only heal from a state of self compassion. So I invite you to get that workbook and start working through that. And if you need any help with any of the concepts, you can reach out for more support.
I'll put all those resources, including the free workbook that you mentioned, into the episode notes. But Leah, for maybe one of the few times as I wrap up this, I am speechless. I have so many things running through my mind right now as it comes to what you've been through. I mean, first off, let me re-emphasize the fact that you served our great country and being in the Marine Corps, despite the difficulty that had been to be in that sort of environment. And I want to say thank you again for doing that. The other thing is, you have been through a lot of things, whether that was through society, whether that's through culture, whether that is through some of the things that you had to traverse because it's just the process of what we go through as life. Where many people would continue to carry the anger and the shame that you have talked about today, you are using this in such a way that I can't quite put my finger on. And that's why I'm a little bit speechless because there's an energy, as some of my guests have talked about, that we often exude or share. And I
Mhm.
feel that you're sharing this energy of this space, whether it's a physical manifestation or whether it's something that you create from nothingness. I feel a sense of comfort today. And it's very unusual for me to wrap up a show where I'm talking about this sense of comfort, but I feel that way. And I don't know if that's a gift that you have or if it's something that you have learned to cultivate and to transpire because of your partner, support, being a mother, whether it's because of the training that you have gotten through the military, whether it's through your formal education, I don't quite know.
I
But
think that's just me.
but I think it's just you. And I think because you are just being you, and I think that your you is making us feel like we're $1,000,000 and that we're able to see that best opportunity, that best authentic version of ourselves. I want to
Yes.
say thank you from the bottom of my heart, being on Speaking from the Heart, because not only did you open some of those doors today, but you're continuing to open those doors. And you're definitely a bright light in this world. So don't let that light be extinguished. So thank you again
Oh,
for being part of the show.
absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
I want to thank Leah for being part of the show and sharing not only her story, but also how she's been able to overcome so much, even with all the things that are deemed as maybe the bad things in life and turning them into great things. Because let's deal with the fact that all things that are great might be bad, and all things that are bad might be great. It's all a matter of perspective. It's all about getting to a better part of our life. Are you willing to do the hard things? Are you trying to get a sense of independence by being able to do it on your own? Are you reaching out to others? I think Leah's story and so much of what she shared all interconnects into finding that sense of independence, being liked as a leader, setting those goals, and helping others while you are a leader in many different facets. The military, regardless of where you are in the world, certainly prepares you into all kinds of opportunities even after you serve your country to be able to help in a variety of ways. But speaking in a perspective of the United States, I feel that we can be doing so much more to be the light, to be the change that we want to have in our lives. Because let's be real, a lot of things that we try to help out with and try to connect with, I think it makes such a big difference to have some careful considerations for developing yourself. You have to learn how to set up not only the success that you'll have for the rest of your life, but even in the military, you have to feel a little bit more disciplined when it comes to what you're trying to achieve. I'm sad to hear that even with Leah's story that she tried to re-enlist because she missed that passion and could not do it, she had to find another way to make it work. Even if you wanted to say that she should have stayed in the armed forces and been able to help serve her country, sometimes things change. Sometimes the perspective that we have back then doesn't make us realize that we had something good to provide until it's too late. I know for even my own life, I have reached out, tried to get into different types of positions, and failed to do so. And then when I did leave positions because I thought I was going to a better place, I wasn't. And I tried to go back, but it was already too late. Sometimes we don't know what our perspective is that we're trying to reach for until we miss what we really were called to do. So where is that place of healing? Where do we find that space? Sometimes it's hard to even do that in the hustle and bustle of life, which we've talked about on so many occasions on this podcast. But yet, trying to find it means that you have to have a heart-to-heart, an exercise in which you discuss what you're trying to achieve. You have to figure out what are some of the best ways to keep moving yourself forward while not moving backward, even if you think that you're heading into a better position. I think that we have to look at what our feelings are, how we're being treated by the world, how we're being treated by others. Because if we are feeling objectified, if we feel that it's something that they could be doing a much better job at, especially with our management, even if we're stuck in a workplace situation that we really want to escape, can we find the good in it? Are we learning something from these experiences so that we never take it again to the chin, to the chest, to even other places that we might not want to have anywhere else in our life, even our personal lives for that matter? I know that it can be a struggle. I know that sometimes you're trying to figure out what are some ways to keep moving the needle forward. But in all honesty, sometimes that needle, as I've even said, can be even pushed, bent, and even destroyed by other people's intentionalities and their false hopes, their false idols of what they should be thinking as being able to move forward. You might be even asking the question, why do we have these bad things happen to me? Why is this always happening over and over again? And I get it. Sometimes those struggles, those fears that we have, the aspects in which we're trying to overcome and learn how to come back from all those past failures, all those ridiculed individuals that we have been facing, all those people that have tried to make us feel like we're worthless, means that we also have to figure out what it means to keep pushing forward. Maybe we look good on paper. Maybe we have the perfect body. Maybe we go above and beyond. Maybe we are even saying to ourselves that we are competent. We are loved. We are going to keep learning and growing. But even then, we might be telling lies to ourselves. We might be having to work on ourselves in a variety of other ways so that we do get that attention. We do get that understanding from others. And that we try to push ourselves and extend ourselves thinking that that will help us get to where we need to be. Wow, isn't that quite a lot of different things happening all at once to try to balance, to try to feel like you're worthy? And yet, maybe all that work is for naught, and to feel like you are worth nothing after everything that you've tried to pour into yourself to do is all for waste. Or is it? I have often sat here, even in my own office, throwing pity parties for myself, thinking that I was never good enough, never able to accomplish the things that I should be accomplishing, and I let my own thoughts, my own desires, my own setbacks even, get the best of me. As I've even said to some of my own clients, I have some of the past versions of myself, let alone even people that I have shamed and wronged, even look at me, even though they're not here, pointing the finger at me and saying that I'm worthless, that I'm never going to make a better version of myself. Those people, those past versions, do not have the empathy and compassion for what I've been through in terms of my own struggles. Whether that has involved infidelity, maybe even mismanagement of my own resources, or even diving into addictions that even I myself am still working through, even as a coach to this day. I do realize that I am human, but yet through that trauma, I will triumph. Trauma in itself should not be the root cause of what holds us back from the unlimited potential and the awesome abilities that we are harvesting. Because even if we feel ridiculed, objectified, racial slurs and other condescending comments that might push us down into a completely different type of mindset, does not excuse or define who we should be. We should not let others push us into that corner, because every time that we are pushed into the corner, we need to fight back. But it doesn't mean that we use physical violence or our own fist, for that matter, to make that happen. I find it ironic even as I say that, because Leah's story is all about serving and giving. But even if you think that the military shouldn't have been the way that she did it, let me challenge you on this. What other occupation, what other field would make you feel like you were as prepared as Leah was when she left? Because even if you understood the independence factor of why she wanted to lead, why she wanted to help others and set goals, we have to understand that things change. But the persona of ourselves might not change, even when everything else is moving in a direction that it should be moving towards. And that can be the biggest setback that anybody could ever have, especially when it comes to those self-destructive thoughts. So where is your place of healing? Going back to the original question, are you feeling worthy? Are you able to find that place? I find that even with the people that we'll continue to have on the show and the people that have been here in the past, one thing has remained clear. The people that have been sharing these tales are in a place of healing and continue to heal every single time that they share their story. Even if they have overcome the odds or have celebrated their successes here, one thing remains true. They keep on wanting to come back, not just to pad their paper because they can say that they've been on Speaking from the Heart, but they're trying to push themselves in a new direction, maybe in ways that they have never experienced before. Which is why I'll end with this. Try something new. Maybe it's something that you've already tried, but it's been a number of years. Try again. It might be an opportunity to expose something in your life that you haven't tried before, but at the same token, allows you to have opportunities, even if you have done it, to see what that new goal is. Maybe it's something that now you are a lot older, a lot wiser, a lot more mature for that matter, but more importantly, you want to live that experience for someone else. Maybe you're helping them see the best version of themselves. For a long time, I've been desiring relationships, confidence, and determination to all come together for me, to find a path forward. But I realize that even for myself, it takes hard work. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to figure out my identity or that I have an identity crisis, especially at 37 years of age, but it's allowing me to understand that I can be able to test new theories, new concepts, and even retest those theories and concepts in a whole new world, which is why I'm able to speak behind this microphone and be able to do something that I continue to grow in, to continue to feel that I belong, and more importantly, look better on paper. But I have to scratch out that last sentence because it isn't about what I look like on paper. It's about pushing and extending myself into a greater conviction that allows empathy and compassion to overcome the struggles that we all have. So overcome those struggles, my fellow listeners. Allow Leah's story to enter you into ways in which you can do the hard things. It can be as difficult as serving in the armed forces. But be the light. Be the change for your family and friends. Because maybe your inspiration might do something for a complete stranger like me to allow me and others to grow and up to the best versions of themselves that they have never seen before. And it was all because that we overcame that place of negativity and entered a place of healing. And that might be the way in which we can overcome not only that negative self-talk, those negative feelings about ourselves, but more importantly, overcoming our trauma. Thanks for listening to episode number 146 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.